It's an honor for me to be here among all of you, this august audience. I'm not a very seasoned speaker, but I'll try my best. Yeah. So basically, this particular study, it should be on the pamphlets. It's meditation, but actually, to be more precise, it's neurocardiac effects of audible mantra repetition. I would like to be more precise. So, next slide, please. Oh. So today, medicine is undergoing a big quantum leap, you can say. Today we know there is a lot of talk about the role of spirituality in healing and maintenance of wellness. So this is actually an article which appeared in Mayo Clinic Proceedings in 2001. 90% of people today believe in a higher being. 94% regard their spiritual and physical health as equally important. And 96% of family practice physicians believe that spiritual well-being is a factor in health. The last fact is that people with spiritual path live at least 4 years longer than people who do not. So why? Maybe I will be able to shine some light. Why I did this study is, I just want to give you a little background, is so while my own experiences for the over 28 years, I've been practicing mantra meditation myself, and before that I was a silent contemplative meditation practitioner for many years. And I've studied books of different great personalities, and I came across in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is describing japa yoga, the audible repetition of divine names, as the first rung of the ladder of all yogic systems. It's not only the first rung of all yogic systems, but also the continuous recitations of the name of a higher being actually form an undercurrent for all other yogic systems. And it is distinct, this japa yoga is distinct from other forms of meditation, in that it is not a sitting practice where you close your eyes and for an hour, but actually it can be included in your routine. One is performing chores, one can be audibly vibrating these sounds which are mentioned in the most ancient books of knowledge, the Vedic literatures. So the question which came to me as a clinician was, if it works purely on a metaphysical level, how is that there are so many studies being published on effects of meditation on depression? That was actually very intriguing for me, and that's why I started my search. And despite its commonplace in India, I grew up in India, and the underlying mechanisms of monotone repetition of specific sounds mentioned in the Vedic literatures have not been studied. Mantra is actually integral part of Vedic literatures, and mananat trayate iti mantraha, meaning that which delivers the mind upon repeated utterance. Mantra in the Vedic literatures, it can be read, chanted, or meditated upon, and each method yields specific results. Vedic literatures are very specific about each sound and how you chant it. And especially the silent meditation has been extensively published, but the monotone audible repetition has not been published. So to address these, I started studying a vast body of alternative medical literature which quantify corresponding somatic physiological parameters associated with metaphysical conscious experience, which itself cannot be measured. The Vedic literatures they regard they perceive the human system as a continuous matrix of 4 systems. The consciousness matrix, you have the psychological matrix, then you have the physiological matrix, and the structural matrix. And each of them are interconnected and intra-connected. And the different elements, they have subtypes in these 4 domains, and all of them are networked. So, basically, is it purely the effects of mantra chanting? Is it purely metaphysical, or actually it's squarely in the realm of biophysics, physics of the body? Is something what I was very curious to study. So, are there any quantifiable physiological effects of vibrating a mantra? This is Srila Prabhupada, actually, who is a great inspiration for me. And he said that spiritual wellness cannot be divorced from physical, emotional, and mental equilibrium. And ultimately, as a physician, my basic duty is to keep people away from becoming chronically ill. The prevention is the first duty of a physician. And today's medical model, it's actually I call post-material science integrative model to protect well-being of the healthy. Actually, it has strong semblance to the Vedic system of medicine. It also has 4 different realms: the biological realm, the social realm, the spiritual realm, and the psychological realm, pretty much. So all domains of human system, again, as I pointed out, are interdependent and connected. State of optimal health is achieved when there is equilibrium in all these domains. And lastly, the spiritual wellness is included in the World Health Organization definition of optimal health. Many people don't give this much importance, but actually spiritual wellness is counted. So modern system of medicine actually has drastically transformed despite a mechanistic model of the human body, which we study in medical school. And I just tried to get, so I was actually curious when I saw the study of Dr. David Wolf, and because I was looking at what are the most common diseases which were actually treated by meditative practices are psychological diseases. So I came across Dr. Wolf's study, and talk a little bit of this. Dr. Wolf demonstrated a statistically significant reduction in depression scale in subjects who chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for 30 minutes a day for 4 weeks. And the effect persisted even after cessation of the practice. So if you just see, is there a laser pointer here? So basically this study lasted 8 weeks, and they divided the 93 participants into 3 separate arms, and all of them underwent a standardized training curriculum, and they were trained in the audible repetition of the mantra. And they did depression questionnaires at weeks on day 0, on day 30, and day 60. We saw that the Mahamantra arm, the depression scales drastically dropped to a very statistically significant degree, and the p-value was less than 0.01. And at this 4-week point, they stopped the practice. They again conducted a survey on week number 8. And they saw that the depression scale didn't go back to the original, but it actually came, it went up a little bit, but it didn't go back. And this was very striking because medications are not like that. If a depressed person actually stops taking medication, there's a risk of suicide even. But this does not happen in this spiritually based intervention. And in the case of, they also gave the other group an alternate Sanskrit sound without spiritual connection. And they also chanted for 30 minutes. And on day 0, they actually measured the depression scale, and on day 30 it went down, but it was not statistically significant. And when they stopped at day 30 and they again checked it on day 60, actually the depression scale went back up to the baseline. And people who did nothing, the control arm who did nothing, there was no effect on the depression scale at all. So we know that depression is connected with many medical illnesses, and this was what stimulated my interest. They followed, in one study, they followed 4,500 men, and they were more than 65 years of age. And they saw that every increase of 5 points to the depression scale actually it increased the heart attack risk by 15%. And they were, people who had depression and coronary artery disease had 60% higher death rate. So this was the study of Dr. Wolf on stress, and they observed similar patterns in stress. Even after they actually stopped chanting, the stress level did not go back in the Mahamantra arm. And I'm not going to get too much into this because we're running out of time. So basically, is the question about stress is all kinds of stress bad for us? Basically, is it detrimental? But actually the fact is only chronic stress is detrimental, because in the wild, zebras don't get ulcers. They're actually, they're at imminent danger at every point of time. They can be hunted, they're predators. But they have mechanisms to actually not let the stress linger on. And that's actually but here we are in the most technologically advanced civilization that we end up getting all chronic diseases. We're basically masters of stress mismanagement. The 24 hours are not enough, and there's always a sense of urgency. Like right now, I'm in a sense of urgency. So what happens is that you lose a loss of discrimination, and you make bad choices, and you make mistakes and errors. So we know that most of chronic stress is responsible for inflammation, and inflammation is the underlying principle for many diseases, including coronary artery disease, dementia, cancer, diabetes, and the list goes on. So this is, what are some implications of stress? This is Elizabeth Blackburn. She won the Nobel Prize for inventing telomerase in 1984. And she found that babies who were born to pregnant mothers when they were very highly stressed, later on in their life, they had a higher risk. They had a higher risk of cancer and cancer mortality, because telomerase was lacking, and there was a loss of genetic information. So if we decrease stress by Mahamantra, probably we can affect incidence of cancer. So we tested the heart rate variability. So what is heart rate variability? It is a physiological beat-to-beat variation in the time interval between heartbeats, and it's the balance of the two systems, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And today we know that heart rate variability has many applications in clinical practice. So people who have a better HRV have a lower incidence of heart attack. They have better outcomes with many conditions like depression, diabetes, and also people who have established cardiac failure, if they actually increase the HRV, they had better outcomes and better healing of the heart. So basically, what is some visual representation of emotions? We actually know when your heart rhythms are haphazard, associated with frustration, anxiety, worry, irritation, negative emotions, they are associated with impaired brain function. And on the other hand, with people who have more regular waves of heart rhythm, they actually have better brain function. They're able to function better, they're able to have better functional memory, make good decisions when it comes to self-care. So this is the study we published, and so the basic focus of the study was, does trained attention practice of audible chanting meditation affect vagal tone as measured by HRV, heart rate variability, which is an indicator of self-regulatory strength and chronic illness. So we use the Hare Krishna mantra because Dr. Wolf used the same, and I'm going to just, so this is the experimental design. So we had two arms, and the experimental arm vibrated the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for 30 minutes for a period of 6 weeks, and the placebo arm chanted a placebo sound which did not have spiritual connection for 30 minutes, and at 4-week point they switched to the Mahamantra. So they were randomly selected, I don't have time to go into these slides. I wish I had more time. I'm going to run through these. So we saw that people who chanted the Hare Krishna mantra, these numbers are logarithmic values of frequencies. And we saw that the experimental group had statistically significant results. And when the placebo group at 4 weeks, they switched to the Mahamantra, they had an increase in HRV. So basically I want to stop here because I don't have the, but tomorrow I'll be having a 30-minute discussion, so you're welcome to come to that.
Thank you.
So how many of you were there yesterday? So most of you were here. So I kind of jumped to the main study because all of you were there yesterday. So it's an honor to be here. I'm very happy. So basically, I'm just going to jump to somewhere number 18.
I missed that one. Why do zebras what?
Don't get ulcers.
Don't get ulcers.
Because they
Zebras have
were at the
stripes.
seminar yesterday.
Zebras have stripes.
So I'm just going to this slide. Start here. So basically, as we said yesterday, it's a very interesting slide that the chikitsa which you pointed out, Daivi Vyapasraya Chikitsa, mantra chanting comes under the Daivi Vyapasraya Chikitsa in Ayurveda. And mantra japa was extensively used in psychiatric diseases. 50% of Ayurveda psychiatry is mantras, and 50% is herbs and other lifestyle measures. So, it is something for me, it was a very long journey to figure out what are some common denominators between mental disorders and medical diseases which have been seen. And I reviewed a very vast body of literature in integrative medicine. I'm board certified in integrative medicine. So I got a chance to look at all the literatures, and I found the HRV, heart rate variability, which is common to depression, anxiety disorders, and heart disease, and many medical illnesses, including cancer and dementia. So, what is heart rate variability? Many people find it a little confusing. It's not heart rate. Heart rate variability in one sentence is the flexibility, the degree of flexibility of your heart. So it's the beat-to-beat variation between heartbeats. You have heartbeats. What is the variation between? Suppose this is the first heartbeat I saw. If you just see this interval, you plot it on the this particular thing, if it beats at this rate, it will be like 62 beats per minute. But if it beats at this rate, it will be higher because the interval became shorter. So, and if it beats at this rate, it's shorter than this, so the heart rate is higher. So that variability is called HRV, and it's chiefly governed by the vagus nerve. It's a very interesting nerve. Vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it's the longest nerve of the body, and it conducts more sensations than executive functions. Vagus nerve actually conducts all the internal sensation of your digestive system, reproductive system, relays it back to the brain. So I found this nerve it's a very unique nerve in that sense. So there is by measuring HRV, we are actually measuring the vagal tone. So as I pointed out earlier, the title of our publication, which came out in October, is How Short-Term Practice of Mantra Repetition Affected the Vagal Tone. So basically, we know that low HRV is the predictor of heart attack, outcomes of heart failure, diabetes complications, depression, Parkinson's disease, and it's a positive indicator of self-resilience, willpower of a person. It actually, people with higher amount of flexibility of the heart rate variability have greater capacity for willpower. So by measuring HRV, you're actually indirectly measuring the willpower of a person. Whether that person is able to execute changes in his life. Suppose I advise as a physician, I recommended something for him in lifestyle. What is the chance that that person will implement those changes can be determined by HRV. So it's a very big, so this is what HRV means. And so there are, in the vagus nerve, there are two fibers. One are the fast fibers, which are myelinated fibers, which are responsible for the fine feedback to the brain. And the ancient network is responsible for crude signaling in the brain. For survival and to escape from a danger, I don't need the fine control. So the nerve will send very crude impulses to the brain when it's a matter of escaping a danger. And modern civilization is only using this particular circuit. They are not using the finer circuit. The modern circuit, which has more fast fibers, which does the very fine signaling to the brain, and it causes very orderly waves being transmitted to the executive centers of the cerebral cortex. So this is why I showed the brain, and this is very important nerve, which controls HRV. So HRV is being used in clinical practice today. There was one study which was published in so there are several studies which actually tie low HRV with depression. And for lack of time, I'm just going to be a little quick here. So this is what I was talking about. Negative emotions. In Ayurveda, again, negative emotions are considered toxins. The feeling of frustration, anxiety, worry are also considered visha to the body. So these are wasters of nutrient. In modern medicine terms, negative emotions waste your neural networks, because you see the energy, how it's being scattered all over, negative. But in finer emotions, the neural networks are they're stimulated in a very orderly way, and the energy is not wasted in the brain. So you're able to, that's why people with better HRV have better sense of discrimination. So what is discrimination? Just consider what matters to you and let go the non-essentials. So that's the most important concept. this is next slide. Let's go here. So this is a paper which came out. I'm just going to just this is the aim of the study. Does trained attention to practice of audible chanting meditation affect vagal tone as measured by HRV, heart rate variability, an indicator of self-regulatory strength and predictor of chronic illness? So we use the Hare Krishna Mahamantra basically because Dr. Wolf, we knew, right? So my question was, if it worked for decreasing stress and depression, does it have corresponding effect on somatic and physiological aspects of the body? So we use the same Hare Krishna mantra, which is mentioned in many Vedic literatures, as a mantra which does not require any strict rules to chant it. And it can be chanted any time of the day. And basically there's one more gentleman who actually came out in the earlier session. One more reason I came up with this research is Prabhupada actually gives a special position to the heart. The heart is the region where the consciousness particle, the soul, resides with the super soul. And in 217 Bhagavad Gita purport. And it's very interesting that the gentleman pointed out, and it reminded me first place. So this is the basic design. Okay. This is the basic design. We selected Caucasian and Hispanic subjects who did not know anything about mantra meditation through newspaper advertisements and other means. And we actually, the technique used in both these groups are the same, audible mantra repetition, which means the people had a standardized training module to pay attention, careful attention to the sound which was assigned to them. So not only that, we asked them the easy way to find out whether I'm able to give attention is not only carefully hear the sound and hear it, but also we ask them to put the palm of your hand and feel the syllables when you're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's the scale we gave them, and they would chant every day and report back to us that they have completed the day's chanting. And they were over 6 weeks. We had repeated measurements. They came at 0, 14, 28, 42, like that. And on each reporting session, we got a baseline HRV and after the study. So they would check